Hey, Tony, what's happening with you?
Kevin Lyman, what's happening with you?
Oh, we're just, sitting here, back to school,
We're back deep dark in the school. Hopefully it's still going on by the time this airs.
By the time this airs, my gosh.
I know,
my gosh,
I'm freaked out
the
every
level,
day.
The level of,
I know.
energy is so wild at school. It's, you come into campus and you're ready to go, and everyone's kind of in this exciting mode. Mm-hmm. You have kids all over the place right now. They're doing the milk crate challenge. You got groups over here, and you still have kids that are struggling.
Nobody should be doing the milk crate.
No,
just for all those kids at home that don't know what the milk crate challenge is.
Don't do it.
This is what they're taking milk crates and the big plastic. You're thinking the cartons? No, the crates. There's these crates. They stack them up on tier and tier and get them taller and taller. And these kids walk on them until they can't, which basically means they fall off and break something.
Wait, you're so funny because you said kids don't know what the milk crate challenge are. Every kid in the world knows what the milk crate challenge.
People out there like me who don't know.
Yeah, for parents that don't know about the milk crate challenge, TikTok has now banned the milk crate challenge videos.
That's wild, right?
I was on campus.
Smart.
I was on campus and literally I was doing something with some students and I look over and there's this big pile of milk crates. And then I see some people coming out. And then I see like 500 people crowd around them. And this is the time when Kevin Lyman goes, you know what? I'm turning and walking the other way. Normally I would walk over there.
It's dumb.
I go, someone's going to end up in the emergency room, downtown LA, probably just there with everyone.
These kids and their rock and roll music today. Back when we were kids in the 80s, we never did anything stupid, right?
You are charming for you kids that don't know it.
In the 80s, we did nothing stupid. We were straight and narrow.
And we said we were going to, we don't even need to drink during this episode because
right?
It's like, it's definitely getting a little punchy from heat stroke out here today.
Right.
I was going to have this woman, Emily Nielsen, on as our charity, just as our charity. And then the more I got to talking about her, I go, wow, this threads into a whole episode. I've known Emily a long time, and we're going to have her on the episode and about punk rock and paintbrushes. And that's spun into an interview with Jim Lindbergh. Of course, everyone knows Jimmy, the festival impresario, or I'd like to say also the singer of Pennywise. And Steve Caballero, doesn't even have to be really introduced, but one of the most legendary skaters.
Super cool.
And then we will be, featuring a charity today. I had a great interview. They reached out for me for their podcast, and then they joined me on my podcast. Kelly Nowell, the founder of the Nowell Foundation and sister of Bradley Nowell.
Yeah, and remember, if anybody wants to get a hold of us, if you've got that story that we have to know, or if you have any suggestions on our show, you've got the number 818-863-6445. You can text us, or you can DM us over on Instagram at My Warped Life.
And it's still called My Warped Life. Shouldn't we have like a title above it now? Presented by? A sponsor.
Oh!
God, Xavier, you're... Jesus, Xavier. It should be like something My Warped Life.
You're right. I do need a glass of Chardonnay with this episode.
But we do want to thank you for Liquid Death always providing the beverages for our show.
Best.
You got any vodka to go with that?
Any mixers
for that?
Just water, baby. That's all you need.
If you grew up enjoying skateboarding, the household name sometimes too is Tony Hawk with what he's done.
Right.
But probably one of the most respected skaters ever was someone I got to know through Warped Tour, Steve Caballero. And we were getting him on the phone. It was just every time I see Steve, it's special. And having him on here, and I asked him, I never knew how he got involved with Vans.
I've been wearing Vans ever since I started skateboarding. So I got my first pair of Vans probably around 1977, 78. But I didn't actually get sponsored by the company until like 1988. That's when they approached me and they wanted me to ride for them and as a professional skateboarder. And the following year, they asked me to do a signature shoe. So I was one of the first skateboarders in the U.S. to have a signature shoe with the skateboard company. And that was a very successful thing. And 3 years passed, and we introduced the half cab, which was from 1992. And that one has been a success this whole time. And next year we're celebrating 30 years of the half cab, which is going to be a huge celebration for myself and Vans.
In sports, you might have a sponsor, you might move on, but that's a long, I thought I had a long relationship with Vans. Steve Caballero, I mean, it has this 1988, he's been with them, but Steve was also a musician. He enjoyed music.
Is that how you met him? How did you meet him? How did he get involved with the Warped Tour?
Well, he might have been at some of the events that I was producing, like the Swatch Impact Tour and the Vision Skate Escape, Holiday Havoc, and some things where we were combining music and sports and stuff.
But you said he was a guitarist, right?
Yeah, but he was also a guitarist. He loved punk rock, and he was in a band called Faction. He recognized the Warped Tour and thought a certain company might want to get involved in it.
Mike Frazier and Neil Hendricks invited me on the tour, and I got to do, the last leg of it, and noticed that there was no involvement of Vans whatsoever, except for like simple shoes. So I remember going to see Van Doren saying, hey, next year, 1996, we should have a booth there. And lo and behold, he calls me up and he says, the Warped Tour is now called the Vans Warped Tour. That was a great relationship, and that allowed me to tour across the U.S. with really rad bands that I grew up listening to and loved, and able to skate at the same time, traveling over to Europe with you guys, traveling over to Australia, Hawaii. I mean, those were some great years. And I remember Vans would make posters for me to sign, and I would sign twice a day, 250 posters a day. So I signed 500 posters a day on the Vans Warped Tour for a month straight, and just reached a lot of people and met a lot of fans, and it was a great push for my career as well.
I didn't put two and two together. Now you have to clarify. Are you saying Steve put you and Van Doren together?
He had said the Warped Tour should be good, and then all of a sudden, Steve, I think indirectly somehow I got introduced, and then Steve called him and said, hey, we're now the Vans Warped Tour.
Wow.
But I'm sure, Steve Van Doren and Steve Caballero are connected in many ways. Like, sure. I feel I'm connected with Steve in many ways. We're all...
You could say 10 years prior, he had a sponsorship with Van at that time, yeah.
Skating is like, you don't even have to talk about Steve's skating. It's legendary. Sure. He's skilled. He was skating a vert demo in Salt Lake City this weekend. That's like, he's young at heart. Physically, though, it's like me. My arm hurts from playing cornhole. Like, I got a sore arm. Pitchers like tendonitis in the elbow for play like too much.
I played tennis for the first time not too long ago. And
how'd you feel?
I feel great.
Yeah. So, but this episode really, we don't even need to dwell on the skating, but it did lead to a lot of fun travels, and we did talk about one of the special trips that we did when we went to Australia.
I wanted to go on that tour so bad, and I heard that we were going to be camping, and I remember waking up at the crack of dawn, like 6 o'clock, with just sweat and from the heat coming in from the tent. And our only showers was the ocean. The heat would wake you up at 6 or 7 in the morning. And then if it rained, you did not want to lean against your tent, because then the water would come in on you, from touching the side of the canvas tent. So, those were great times, man. And I met a lot of people, and I had a lot of respect for the bands. And the Vans Warped Tour is actually what got me into riding dirt bikes too. Because when you guys had dirt bike riders on there, I met Larry Linkogel, Brian Deegan, Carrie Hart, Ronnie Feist. Just watching those guys jump over our vert ramp every day was just so inspiring. It made me want to grab a dirt bike. And because of that, I ride a dirt bike today. Those are times I'll never forget, and those were times I got to hop on the stage with Pennywise and play Brohim with Fletcher and Jim, and just some amazing times I'll never forget. And lots of great stories from the Vans Warped Tour in Australia.
Steve Caballero is he meets the motorcycle guys, and that's what he's doing now. He rides dirt bikes. He races dirt bikes. He's in a band, and he's got a very great new band that's called URETHANE. I think he's finally got a team of people around them that are great. He was always on standby, always like, I'd go up on stage or look at the stage, and there's Steve Caballero, like ready to jump in with the guitar. Like, you want like a guest guitar, Steve was there. But then I asked, like, there was a lot of mutual admiration going on between skaters and musicians.
Of course.
So I'd ask Jim Lindbergh something. I remember when he was on the road, they'd come off the ramp, and I'd look over on the side of the stage a lot of times, and there was Cab watching the bands. And, like, either sometimes he'd get a guitar and be able to play with people, but he always looked like he was ready to go. I never saw you on top of the ramp looking like you were ready to go the other way.
No, I know. And I thought about it. I wanted to wait till no one was around, because who wants to do that when the pros are around? But that just shows you their confidence, because all the skater guys would get up and play in front of, 20,000 people. But I ain't getting on that ramp. When it comes to surfing and skateboarding, Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater, their reputations are safe when I'm out there.
Some beverages showed up. And I'd like to thank Glenn E. Thomas Dodge, Chrysler Jeep Ram for these cups.
Wait, stop that. No free deals.
Yeah, no free deals.
Oh, we got some free cups. We just need stuff to fill them up with.
Pay for that.
All right.
I can't believe you said that.
We talk about Australian, and I know we're going to be putting an episode together very quickly on that. I got to do that, and that might be an upcoming 2 or 3 episodes down.
Yeah,
we're going to do the
sure.
whole Australia trip. But beyond all these things he was doing, he has an artistic quality beyond like that physical. He is an artist. He creates art. And he was able to go out and he does art. And this is kind of falls into people just, you got to keep busy, and you keep your mind busy is good. I asked him how he hooked up with Emily Nielsen and Punk Rock and Paintbrushes.
She approached me and she heard that I had done artwork. So I went down to San Diego one time and brought some artwork, and I don't think she really knew about me, because she was very surprised of the people who knew me, and she didn't know anything about skateboarding. But over the years, she's found out who I am and what my involvement is in skateboarding and in punk rock. And she's helped me move some art.
I thought it would be great, to have her on the show. And I was talking about the charity, but then learning more about Emily was very, very interesting.
In 2006, I had cancer. And in 2007, I went to remission. And so myself and Tim McElrath from Rise Against created this art piece to just commemorate my remission from cancer, just as 2 friends, which we met in 2004 on Warped Tour. So, it all kind of circles back to the common denominator. And we created this art piece. Neither of us are painters or artists, but it was just a friendly gesture. And someone had said, that's really cool, and maybe you should do more of those and auction them off and support different cancer nonprofits and so forth. So we were working with 2 people on each painting. We were working with those who have been affected by cancer and musicians. And as the years passed, musicians began to kind of raise their hands and say, hey, I've been affected by cancer in this way, and I'm also an artist, and I would like to create this piece fully on my own. And they were people that I call them closet artists, because they didn't show their work. They didn't show their paintings, and I did not know they were artists. So they started showing or bringing their Rock Against Cancer pieces to me. And it was amazing. I was like, wow, I didn't know these, I didn't know Matt Skiba was an artist. I didn't know Warren Fitzgerald was an artist. And so they started lifting each other up, I believe, is how it kind of began. Is if you had one of these individuals come to me and have, say, a solo art show, I'm not sure that would have happened. But because they created a community with each other and started lifting one another up, that's how Punk Rock and Paintbrushes started. And in the end of the day, we began creating and curating art shows where we worked with, call them professional musicians, who are also artists. And then today, it's just this whole community. It's not necessarily professional artists, but it can be family members of, or people in the punk rock community, or professional skateboarders or athletes and whatnot. And it's just evolved into what we have today.
I didn't realize when I saw Punk Rock and Paintbrushes, I knew obviously it was painting, but the mix of bringing an artist to write lyrics on, that's just really cool concept. I love it.
I mean, and I got to say, Emily is the one person I knew that pulled a tour off during the pandemic. And it was crazy because she called me and said, "Hey, I want you to do this tour and this." And I'm like, "Emily, like the world's shutting down. We're shut down. There's no tours." And the next thing I know, she's out on tour.
I come from more of a music background where I know where locations are best. I know music venues, but going into art galleries and going into spaces it's different. I, for instance, was going to choose where Warren Fitzgerald, my co-creator of the book, where I wanted to bring him. So I talked to the Vandals manager and we were going to talk to the agent, because you can look into, okay, where do the Vandals do well? You have that background. But with people, say skateboarders or those in our community, my question was, well, what cities do I go to? Where do I go? And I won't forget, I was out with Matt Hensley, one of our artists, and I was asking him, because he crosses over with his music with Flogging Molly as well as his professional skateboarding career. And I told him the artists we're bringing out, including Steve Caballero, Christian Hosoi, and so forth. And I asked him, Matt, I said, where do we go with the skateboarders? And Matt looked at me and he said, Emily, he said, you basically have the Rolling Stones of skateboarding. Said, you can go anywhere. So we went out on this tour with half the time was with our skateboarding artists, and then the other half was with more of our musician artists, we'll call it. And I don't have a strong background in skateboarding. I'm learning about Steve's life and Christian's life. And I remember when we first started doing a few art shows with Steve Caballero, and I would watch the reaction of his fans, and I would watch these 50-year-old men getting so excited to meet him. And I kind of thought, what's the story here? And I asked Steve, I said, I want you to share your background with me. I want you to share your story, because this is important. So we went out for the first leg to the Midwest, and we usually have a 2-day art show in each location, where that looks like an art exhibit. And then we have an extra day where I'm basically in the gallery, people can come and go. And I thought, okay, we have our artists out. They're not at home. They're ready to be involved. They're ready to work. So let's make this a little more special. And that's when we all started speaking, and we thought, what can we do? What can we share and make this a really intimate and special experience? Because Christian Hosoi is not just an artist. There's so much more to him. And like you said, he's overcome so many challenges, and he wants to share that. So what we did on this specific tour is we added this VIP day where people had to actually purchase our coffee table book to be able to attend. So that really worked in our favor, because that, helped with our book sales. And what we did is we had Christian speak, and then he brought in his friend, Brandon Novak, who's also a skateboarder and also has overcome many obstacles in his life. And he fit well. He's not an artist, but he's, motivational speaker. He's friends with all of our community. So we had them speak together and separate. And then what we did is a Q&A with all the artists. And that was, some of the artists were a bit hesitant pre-St. Louis, because they thought, what's this Q&A going to look like? They've probably done some in their life. Well, that was a chance for people to ask those intimate questions, for people to ask those questions that maybe they normally wouldn't go face to face with someone and ask. And so it's just, I'm not sure if you saw the video, just looking at that, this is about art. This is about what they're creating and they're putting on the walls, but it's so much more than that. It's about our challenges we've had. It's about why we're doing this and who we want to share this with, and the community. And, I've talked to a lot of friends of both of ours, and they asked me about the tour. And, these men are mostly, in their 50s, and a lot of them don't drink. They're sober. A lot of them, they're married. They're not 20. We're not 20 years old. We're not 20 years old on work tour, right? We're adults. And so it was a different challenge for me. I had a group of 9 men that were so excited. They were like kids in a candy store, and they're all feeding off of each other, because we're at the art shows at night, and then we're at the VIP. And then in the day, we're getting invited to these really amazing skate parks, and we're doing the skating. So basically, I just have 9 men that are just excited. and that kind of just kept rolling, even when, we went to the East Coast and we had Warren out and Charlie Tuna, and they were able to, they were just excited to be there because someone, say Charlie Tuna, he's been touring, whether it's with Jurassic 5 or Slightly Stoopid or his music, he's been touring, he's in his 50s, his whole life with that. So for him to tour with his art, he's just so stoked. This is something different for him. He hasn't done this. So it's this element of excitement from these grown adults who, yes, they've toured their whole life, but this is a different type of touring for them. This is them sharing with the world a different part of their creativity. It's not just their music, it's now their art. And so they're like fresh off, they're ready to share it.
You've now got this mix of creatives. You've got, skateboarders, you've got musicians, and they're in a different element. They're all neutralized, but reunited in another field, art.
I think this is also very prominent in a cultural, I guess in the UK. There's a difference in the United States and the perception of, you know what, you want to be an actor, go be an actor. Oh, but you also want to then go be an architect, go be an architect. I've got a lot of friends from the UK that's frowned upon. Like, this is your lane, stay in it. That's what you do. And I know a lot of people that have come here to the U.S. from the UK because they just couldn't get from under that, because they wanted to be able to completely change their career, do something else. And I think that she hit on a discovery of this when meeting these people. Now, do you think she realized it was going to be this big of a deal?
I don't know. I think, that's the thing. She's a force of nature. I think, nothing's going to stop her. People ask me all the time, like, did you think the Warped Tour was going to last 25 years? Or did you think that? I'm like,
You just kept your head down and like her, and I can see it.
You just keep going. And, it's hard. You can't say no. She's put out this wonderful book now that's of the artwork. She's got plans for more tours. She's going to be, this past weekend, they were at Beach Life Fest down in Redondo Beach. They're doing everything. I mean, she just is driving forward. Nothing's going to hold her back. And, I asked her, like, how did this, your life kind of pivot from, a lot of things you went through?
I just did an interview yesterday, and people, ask the questions of like, what are your goals and what are your, and it's like, we have goals, and I think we have these aspirations, but 20 years ago or whatever it was when I fell onto Warped Tour, it was like, did I think this is, we didn't think this is where we would end up, but we do these actions. And like right now, circling back, I'm getting ready to go out next week with Rise Against for a week to do some work with them. And again, I met them on Warped Tour in 2004. Steve Caballero, met him. I'm doing Beach Life with Jim Lindberg, met him on Warped Tour. And it's like, oh my God. And it's like, did we think back when I was struggling with my own life and with my, to be honest, my addiction and my alcoholism back on those summers, did I think, oh, this is the purpose? I didn't know what the purpose was, but I knew there was a purpose, and that's what I think it is Christian Hosoi. He doesn't know what the purpose is when, he's, in prison 20 years ago, but there is something. And I think that's what makes it special, is that all of us together and sharing this today, there's some common denominator, and that common denominator is, let's make a change. Let's share what we're doing with the world, because we haven't had a silver spoon. We haven't just had life easy. We've had our challenges, but so has everyone, right? In different ways. So I think that's what makes, as you said, the video you see, it's so special because there is a drive. There's an extra drive going on with us. It's not, oh, we started art at 15 years old and now we're just successful artists. And no, there's so much more depth to it. And that's why I think that it is what it is today. And it's like, this wasn't a goal of mine 20 years ago. I didn't mean for this to happen, but today these things in my life are happening. We don't know what tomorrow is going to look like, but today it's going well. We did our tour. We did the book. The book was not a goal of mine in my life. It happened. Again, me and Warren did it together and met him out on the road, 15 years ago or whatnot. So these things come in our life, whether they're challenges or not. And I think we just think, why the hell is this happening? Or what's the purpose of this? And all I can think of, there's a purpose. There is a purpose. We don't know what it is, but it's going to come together. And if that means you're going to start an art collective 20 years later, that's what it is.
At a very high level, she describes what the common denominator is for a lot of these like-minded people. Now, whether she says at a high level, my perception is that a lot of these people came together as based what this charity is for. A lot of people struggled with addiction. A lot of people came up through this industry and had some hard times, and they're giving back, but they're finding each other, and they're finding this avenue collectively together that they can give back, but it's growing bigger.
This episode kind of started taking twists and turns as I was doing the interviews. And while I was talking to Steve Caballero, I brought up a story a little bit that I remembered quite clearly. And it was very strange because I was invited to go up to Colorado with vans. They did this thing, the Zoomies 100K, where they would give awards out to people who were great salespeople. And Steve would gather up some skaters, and he invited me to give out one of these awards. And I had a run-in once with Tony Alva, the skater, in the basement of a place called the Key Club. Tony,
Oh, yeah.
Tony was fighting his own addictions and
Right.
some of the things, and he was a very punk rock guy. Tony, I'd come across, but he headbutted me one night in the basement of the Key Club, and he told me, that I destroyed punk rock. Trust me, there was security guards around. Everyone I knew there was about ready to drag this guy out, and I said no. And I said, Tony, being punk rock is hard. Being punk rock is hard. I get it. Growing old in punk rock makes it even harder. But being old and ignorant in punk rock is a bad thing. And Tony was fighting it. So it was kind of, I was on edge a little bit because I know, I didn't see him after that. It was weird, and we were going to fly up, and I showed up at the airport, and Tony had told me that he had gotten sober. He had, kind of found his place. So this episode is a lot about, I started crying, like redemption and renewal. So we went up on this thing, and now it's got Christian Hosoi, who is going to jail for trafficking at one point.
Right.
You've got Steve Caballero, Tony Alva, and Tony and me at the airport had this really nice time, and it was like this coming together, and we've done a lot of things since then. I'm there for him if he needs something. He's there for me if I need something. And the redemption, renewal. And I get up to Colorado, and I remember working skate contests, and these guys were all gnarly. They were like, there was always a party. They were always in trouble, destroying a hotel.
Punk rock and skateboarding.
And, and I'm like trying to build ramps and do this. They were a pain in the ass at these contests. Not Steve Caballero, though. Wasn't Steve. Never Steve. But these guys were, always a pain in the ass. And I was like in Colorado. I'm like, hey, you guys want to go out today? You want to go out tonight? Like, we're in Colorado. There's a nice old town. Let's go out and do something. And they all looked at me and they go, we're going to have a faith discussion led by Steve Caballero. And, I brought that up to me.
What?
Yeah, it was like, I felt like the world just turned. Like, I was the guy that was willing to, and it was like not going out to cause trouble, but it was like, hey, I want to go. And we're going to have this faith discussion. And I talked to Steve a lot about where his faith comes from and how he's been a rock within this community for people that maybe have drifted off the path.
Unfortunately, we all have some kind of addiction to something, and unfortunately we kind of fall short and fall into it. Some people have been stronger than others and some people haven't, some people have kind of walked with the wrong crowd and some people haven't. So, it really depends on who you hang out with and is basically how you're going to end up. And I always try to hang around positive people that help push me and that are on the right path and doing good things and not destroying themselves, So, it's hard, you got to pick and choose your friends and you got to hang out with the right people. My talent in skateboarding has definitely encouraged a lot of people to get into skateboarding, which in turn got into music, which in turn got into art. So definitely what I've learned over the years through skateboarding has helped influence and encourage people to be expressive in a creative way. I've always tried to be a person that people could look up to in a positive manner, not so much a negative manner. So I really watched the way I represented myself and what I said and did. Obviously I'm not someone who's perfect, and I've made a bunch of mistakes too. And I've also hidden things from the public that people don't know, and always trying to look good in the limelight, but we all fall short, and for me, it took me 41 years to become someone, a man of faith. I lived without God for 41 years. And so now he's my rock. He's a person of wisdom that I look up to, and I'm encouraged, inspired to live a better life, so I can inspire people more in a positive way. We go through ups and downs, and there's a lot of hardships, and life's a learning experience. And, you got to go through some hardships to gain wisdom, and sometimes you don't. You can learn from other people's mistakes as well. I myself love to learn from other people's mistakes and rather making them myself, and that's how you separate the wise and the unwise.
I want to be very delicate how I say it, because I don't want to lose fans, and I don't want to gain fans for one reason or another. And what I would want to say is, hey, that's great how he found it, whether he found it in faith. Other people find it in different ways, whatever the path they choose to get in a position where they feel
Less to help people.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I'm all about live and let live. However you get there, you get there. Some people find it through religion. Some people find it through
that's
their family, whatever it is. It's just good for them.
Well, and that's been a thread through my life. It's like we don't judge. You could be religious, you could be atheist, you could. But if you're doing good, and you're just giving people a chance,
as long as you get there, and he's bringing other people up with him, which I love that.
Absolutely. Beach Life Fest just happened, and it was pretty awesome with Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. And it was funny because I caught up with Jimmy Lindberg, the singer of Pennywise, who's now a co-producer of this festival, right before, and it was the funniest.
I didn't know he co-produced this.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool.
It is like the funniest part of all of this, because Pennywise was a pain in my ass on guest lists. They would have one.
Pennywise a pain in your ass?
You give
That's
them
weird.
You give them 100 guests, they want 150 guests. You gave them 200 guests, there'd be 300 guests. So it was funny when I first caught up with him, and he was telling me he was late for the interview. We rescheduled. He was very good about it. We were trying to figure out how to get this done because he was in the middle of producing his own festival.
Beach Life Festival, it'll be our second one. We did 2019, and now we've got September 10 through 12. So a couple weeks here, and we're on it. We're going to start building out on Monday.
And I hear it's sold out, correct?
Sold out. So got a great lineup this year. We got Jane's Addiction, Cage the Elephant, Revivalists, Ziggy Marley and Stephen Marley playing all Bob Marley songs, Ben Harper, Gary Clark Jr. And then I'm doing this whole speakeasy stage with ton of people. Trevor Keith from Face to Face, Jason DeVore, Authority Zero, Jason Cruz is Strung Out, Steve Caballero, who I think you just had on. We're trying to ease into the people of Redondo Beach and the King Harbor area. It's a total harbor with sailboats and retired folks living all around in condominiums. So we had to ease into it a little bit. The first year was Willie Nelson and Brian Wilson and Bob Weir, so it was pretty mellow. So this year with Jane's Addiction and Cage the Elephant and Fits and the Tantrums, we're getting a little more rowdy. And so I anticipate by 5 years in, we'll have Pennywise and Suicidal Tendencies playing.
Well, with that, I'm going to be running in the house and having some dinner, checking in with Fran what we're doing that weekend, because you might be getting a text from Kevin Lyman to actually want to get on a Jim Lindberg guest list. So
I'll be sure to block you.
Yeah, of course. It was great catching up with Jim and asking him, how he got involved with Emily.
Emily is just the definition of the Energizer Bunny. She just is doing so much stuff, and started out, she was doing this benefit for cancer and, just doing so many cool things. And we did a event down at San Diego at the House of Blues, and she just asked me about that. And, all this time through everything that we do, and I know you're the same way, it's like those ways that you can give back somehow and do something cool like that. Like, we did a bunch of charity concerts. I know all the stuff you've done. And when someone like Emily comes to you, it's like, of course, we want to do this thing. So just slowly over the years, she would come at me with different things. And then all of a sudden this art thing came along. And once again, I know so many people in the music scene also like to do art, like to write, like to draw, like to do all this stuff. But for me personally, I started out really loving to draw and do artwork as a young kid, but she kind of pushed me to try it again. And I really hadn't done a lot more than doodling with my daughters and whatnot, and drawing posters for school and whatnot. But it was really cool to take another stab at it. And she really reignited that. So, we all have so much to thank Emily for. She's just been a motivator. You need someone to be like, hey, I'm doing this cool thing. Why don't you contribute? And like, I was stoked that she wouldn't let up on me because I finally started producing some stuff, and now I'm doing it all the time. So since we're doing this beach life festival, we wanted to represent everything that is beach life. And so that means surfing, beach volleyball, skating up and down the Strand. The area down here, the South Bay, is such a huge part of the surfing and skating culture. So, right when we started doing it, I thought of Emily and said, hey, is there any way you'd be interested in bringing down the whole art show down to the beach here? And luckily, we've gotten some local people involved that I grew up with. There are great artists. There's Steve Caballero, who's a surfboard airbrusher who's involved. He did a T-shirt for us. We have Bob Dobb, who's actually doing my album cover I'm doing an acoustic album coming up. So definitely just wanted to get as many people involved. And that's what Emily is so great at, is pulling all these people together. It's some of these people I knew of and had seen their work, but I never met these people, and just doing the events with her, I've met so many interesting people and been inspired by everything that they do. She's just like inspiring so much creativity in the community. And being a festival guy, sometimes, you don't want to sit there and have a band, a bunch of bands playing music at you all day. It's nice to be able to have an attraction on site, like you did with the skate ramps and the motocross ramps, and now doing these art shows and stuff like that. It's really cool to have a place at the festival where you can go to and find out that Steve Caballero is actually a really good artist, and find out that Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction is an amazing artist and is doing all this cool stuff with dual diagnosis, helping out young people and mental illness. And it's just like this tornado of good shit that's happening. And it's all, there's no other way to put it. It's like really inspiring creativity that's coming out of this whole thing.
They did this tour in the middle of a pandemic. We were all laughing that it actually happened. Like they actually.
I mean, that makes me concerned. A tour in the middle of the pandemic. What was it? Outdoors? Was it safe? All that.
They felt like it was great. And Steve,
where did they
Steve recapped the tour for me.
We had some great testimonies of Christian Asoy and Brandon Novak, and we had a panel with all the artists we did these VIP events that was sold with the book. It was a great tour. It was a great little get together with these guys and travel and kind of get to know each other a little bit more closer. And yeah, Emily is a go-getter. She has a heart for showing the creative side of people, and she's a great curator, and she's done really wonderful things for our scene. So I back her all the way.
Who are some of the people you've gotten to work with on that? It's quite a lot of great collaborative effort among so many people.
Jason from Strung Out, Jim from Pennywise, Matt Hensley, Christian Asoy has been on there, my friend Paul Kroberger, Mark DeSalvo, who actually painted the cover of our new album, Chasing Horizons, with my band Urethane, Bryant Bent. The collection just is getting bigger and bigger. and more and more people are getting involved with punk rock and paintbrushes. And we're going to be doing showing some art at Punk Rock Bowling. So a lot of the major festivals, Emily will be there with Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. And like I said, it's a good showcase. It's another way to express myself creatively, and through music, and through art, I get to be creative.
Punk Rock Bowling is it's grown into this giant festival. It started out by the Stern Brothers, BYO Records. And they were keys in the music scene. Youth Brigade was their band.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's like they started this event called Punk Rock Bowling. It would be a bunch of punk rock people going and bowling. We only went once because we went with Daryl Eaton. We had Paul Gomez was with us, and we brought our wives, and we were just stupid. We went out and had this big dinner.
That's like fucking
drank
blast.
too much, and it was this whole bowling alley, and it was just really. So they've grown this thing to a big festival, and they're going to be the same weekend. They're at the end of September, the final week of December, the 24th, 25th, and 26th of December, and then I'm up there doing my recovery event with Macklemore and everything on the 27th. So it's going to be a big weekend up there. I'm going to try to catch a little few sets and go see some old friends at Punk Rock Bowling. But, Emily and Punk Rock and Paintbrushes are going to be there. So if you're out at Punk Rock Bowling and you've listened to this episode, be sure to drop it. Steve's band Faction was okay. And Steve, but now URETHANE, like you're starting to hear like people talking about this band, it's getting tours. And, I asked Steve, like, why is it so great now?
I would have loved to have music become a career as well, but it just depends on the situation and where you're at and who you're with and who you're associated with to make that happen. And I just haven't been with the key players to make that happen. And I feel now with this new band that I'm in, I feel like I have the key players, and we're just in the right place at the right time to make it happen.
As well as anyone, it came about by me playing on the Warped Tour and seeing my skateboarding hero riding the half pipe, a few feet away from me day after day all summer long. So, of course, with all the guys, Fraser, everybody, and Carrie Hart on the motorcycles, it was like summer camp with these guys, and you, of course, so became great friends with Steve from way back when. But then also through Emily and Punk Rock and Paintbrushes, we started doing some artwork along with her and all the great stuff she's doing. And then I know Steve has been in bands for years. He's a great musician. He's obviously not just a triple threat. He's a quintuple threat on the stuff that he can do. And then so his latest thing, he's got a band called URETHANE, and he just hit me up and said, "Hey, can you sing a song on our new album?" And he played it for me, and it's, it was ridiculous. He's got a great band. You always think that you hear some skater or someone like that wants to start a band. You're like, oh my God, what's this going to sound like? And you hear this, and it's like, immediately the album is ripping, so couldn't be more stoked to be a part of it.
It's funny, the juxtaposition to hear them both speak about each other is adorable. I mean, when Steve first started talking about him and saying, hey, they let me on stage, my hero Pennywise, I got to play, and then in the same vein, you hear Jim say, hey, my hero on the half pike, I get to see him out there, and then he gets to play. That's just hilarious. They're each other's. It's cool.
It was really cool back there, because then all of a sudden you're like realizing that you're like eating the same food lines.
So if I wanted to go to a punk rock and paintbrush event, the next one is in Vegas, right?
Well, they're going to be part of Punk Rock Bowling coming up. And
right.
It's only like a week away. So if you're going to Punk Rock Bowling, drop by and see Punk Rock.
And they have a website that you can check out all that and support them as well. I think it's fascinating.
Absolutely. I got an email asking me if I join a podcast. I get requested many times, and I always enjoy them.
Yeah, it's fun.
I call myself episode 1 because I'm usually on everyone's first episode because I agree to it. And then it's...
Do you have a tattoo that says episode 1 on your ass?
But I got an email from, and I saw it, and it was from Kelly Knowles, producer. She has the Bradley Family Foundation, and they're doing really cool stuff. And I was able to catch up with Kelly on her podcast, and I said, "Oh, you need to join my podcast." And we did one, and
Everybody's got a podcast.
everyone's got a podcast, and it's great. But I asked her to be on my podcast, and it was great for the Nowell Foundation.
About 4 years ago, we were going through some stuff with our family. My nephew Jacob had been struggling, and he was in rehab. And to his credit, he's got 4.5 years of sobriety, and he's in his mid-20s. I can't say enough how proud I am of him and the incredible things that he's dealt with at such a young age. But it was during that time that we started to realize the importance of music in recovery because of how important it was to him. And also this realization that, we were in a unique position to be able to help people and potentially help people that wanted to break the chains of the addiction that they found themselves in, but didn't have the means to do it. And as you know, in the music industry, it's such a challenge because the musicians are the life of the party, and it's very difficult for someone who is trying to stay sober because they realize that they need to save their life. And yet as they're pursuing their passion, they're not able to because of all the struggles and everything that comes with it. So it just sort of all kind of developed out of this struggle that we were going through. Obviously the struggle that we had been through with my brother, but being able to look at it with fresh eyes as we were dealing with it with Jacob, and just realizing that there was an opportunity here to create something that would allow people to get help.
We both agreed that for a second there, we felt like there was a crack in the door with opioids, that we were making strides, we were making things. And all of a sudden you start seeing the numbers coming out during this pandemic that, I say, as soon as when Kellyanne Conway was put in charge of the opioid crisis, I knew we were fucked.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those things. And it was like all of a sudden, and, she brought it up also.
Prior to the pandemic, I really felt like we were making great strides. There was so much talk in the media about the opioid epidemic, and there was so much awareness being created. And you're right. I feel like as soon as, all this stuff hit, and I mean, rightly so, but it has taken over the national conversation, and we've lost a lot of ground, I think. And as you mentioned, so many people are struggling with the pandemic, and they turn to substance use for that. So it has become even more of an issue. And yet, sadly, we're not talking about it. And so hopefully, as things start to open up again and to normalize, if that's even a thing anymore, we will be able to put more of a focus on that because it is such a problem, and it is such an issue, and it has grown.
And then the last one is just, of course, Tony, how do we get a hold of the Nowell Family Foundation?
On our website is the easiest way. There's a contact us button down at the bottom. Our website is thenowellfamilyfoundation.org. It might be the longest URL in history. I'm not sure. We do have a link tree, but I haven't found an easy way to explain that. It's linktr.ee/Nowell Foundation. That's about as easy as I can put it. But that has all of our, everything, even the compilation album that we've been fortunate enough to have our good friends at Law Records put together for us. And that's been a huge game changer, especially with the pandemic, which obviously was not even on the horizon when the idea for the album started in late 2019. But as it turned out, because of all the excitement over all of these artists that have been a part of this amazing compilation, 2020 actually was a fantastic year for the foundation. And we have so much more momentum coming out of that. But, as you mentioned, it is difficult to get bands to do benefit shows. And especially now, I hesitate to even ask for things because I know so many people are struggling, and it's been such a hard time.
We always got to pick bands out here. And the name of my band,
yes.
The name of my band, it was really weird. It was like kind of a weird name, but it was called Blood Kittens. And I was just kind of...
Blood Kittens? Where did you hear Blood Kittens?
Blood Kittens. It's a pretty cool band.
Where are they based out of?
I don't even know. I just heard the song, Blood Kittens.
There it is, kids. You heard it first here. Blood Kitten's going to be sweeping the nation. Top of the pops. Blood Nation. You know what I want to do is I want to ask someone who really has their finger on the pulse of music today. I want to ask somebody who knows what band is out there and what they're listening to. You got to ask the kids.
Diego, what's your favorite band? Don't tell me the Pixies with that shirt you're wearing right now.
What's interesting out there right now that you're listening to?
The old stuff. There's nothing really.
There it is. That's my kid. He can stay living in my house.
You know what,
I love
Diego?
him very
Are they
much.
buying those band shirts at Target or what? I got to ask. They always sell. I go, all these kids can't
Anything out
like
there,
Led
kid,
Zeppelin.
that you're listening to that you like? Because I know you listen to new stuff all the time. It's okay to say Slipknot.
Oh, you know what I always said? If your kid puts Slipknot posters up in the room, then you need some therapy.
That's right.
So it was like, people would always go, I go, what's your kid listening to? And if everything's cool, I'm going, good. And they'd say Marilyn Manson or Slipknot. I go, have an intervention.
I want to thank Xavier today. Have a wonderful time in London. And then Beata, thanks for keep posting all the love. Love you very much. And Vivian, I know you're out there listening.
And you know what? We got him in person, so take it away.
Diego, say take it away, Diego.
I don't know what to do now.
Just say take it away, me.
Take it away, Diego.
Okay, I'll take it away.
All right.
Thank you.